This is a short story to introduce my grandmother and her siblings, and my fond and warm memories of childhood that influenced my love and respect for food, culture, and history. My grandmother Teresa was born in the Azore Islands of Portugal in 1941. She was the fifth of nine children. Born and raised on the island of Fayal, Teresa aspired to become a Carmelite sister. On her 18th birthday, Teresa, her parents, and her eight siblings emigrated to the United States. They settled and built their new lives in California. My tia Maria Elise was the oldest sister. Tia Elise was the seamstress of the family. She would make all the beautiful and formal gowns or dresses. Maria taught my grandmother how to crochet when she was little, and that is a skill that my grandmother passed on to me. When I was little, I also used to imagine Tia Elise would teach me how to sew, and even maybe one day help me make my own wedding dress. Uncle Joe was the oldest brother, tough, adventurous, and very charismatic, a farmer and a fisherman. He hunted whales as a young man in the Azores. When the family moved to the U.S., everyone started their new lives as farmers in the Sacramento Valley area. I didn't see Uncle Joe much when I was young. He was always off on an adventure, somewhere fishing. Uncle Joe taught me how to dance at the festas and how to drive a tractor, which came in handy when I went to college. Uncle Albert is the third sibling. Albert was a builder. He and his brothers helped to build and develop the community of Lincoln, California to the bustling city it is today. He has a beautiful wife, my tia Herminia. Every time I'd visit at Uncle Albert and Tia Herminia's, even unannounced, Tia is always home to welcome me in and always has a bowl of something hot and delicious to eat. The dish I remember the most was her beef stew and babsix. Tia Filomena, Tia Minnie, was the fourth child and the second sister. She is the cake queen of the family. Every wedding cake I tasted as a child was a Tia Filomena production. Any event that required cake, Minnie delivered in flavor, presentation, and abundance. Whether it was a towering stacked wedding cake or a simple and humble communion cake, it was so beautiful you had to touch it to believe it was real. My favorite flavored cake she made was the champagne cake. My avó was the fifth child, third sister of the family. She was a conversation enthusiast, photojournalist of the family, and a master at crochet and cross-stitch embroidery. Every family event since Teresa first came into possession of a camera was photographed. Every birth, christening, get-together, visit, occasion. You never need worry about the moment being captured with Teresa there. Every child born into the family were gifted a crochet Afghan blanket and clothes. Ovo learned to crochet from her sister Maria Elise, and she would share stories with me about growing up in the Azores as she taught me the skill. My grandmother also imparted the virtue of a strong work ethic to her grandchildren. Every day while I was in middle school, we were required to attend morning mass and then help her re-landscape the church's garden. We transformed a juniper bush sanctuary into a layered, sectioned garden of a variety of flowers, plants, trees, and a bench. The garden remains there to this day. My siblings and I also helped to do the same thing at her house. Dig out all the junipers from the front and backyards and replace them with roses, flowers, fruit trees, and a seasonal garden. Even though our grandmother passed away in 2018, my siblings still go over to her house and tend and maintain her garden. Uncle Tony is the sixth child, third brother. Similarly to my avó, Uncle Tony was on track to becoming a priest before the family moved to the United States. Like Uncle Joe and Albert, Tony was a gifted builder, farmer, and fisherman. Tony and Ovo were closest of the siblings and would visit us regular when I was a kid. He would seem to randomly stop by to see if my grandma needed help with maintenance in her garden. When Uncle Tony found out that I was really interested in history, he would bring me books about history. He even introduced me to one of my favorite films of all time, Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor. Uncle Fliesbert is the seventh child, fourth brother. Like his brothers, Fliesbert worked as a farmer and a builder. Dio and his wife, Gabriella, have been growing grapes at home since their home was built shortly after they were married. Every year, Uncle Fliesbert uses his grapes to make homemade wine. Winemaking is a traditional practice for many in the Azores. Tia Gabrielle is the bread baker of the family. Every family event, you can count on Tia Gabriela showing up with freshly baked loaves of Portuguese sweetbread for every household, plus some extra treats like pastelnatas or meringue cookies if she really likes you. Tia Maria Augusta is the eighth child, fourth sister. I used to spend every summer with my Tia Augusta from about third to seventh grade. My tia and her husband, Uncle Art, are dairy ranchers. They have thousands of dairy cows, and every summer my job was to feed bottles to the calves. I also got to tag along when she would do catering for local events. Tia Augusta did all of the family event catering as well. Every wedding was fed by her. Uncle Art and Tia Augusta also uphold an old Azorean tradition of slaughtering animals every year for the family. Once a year, usually in early spring while it's still cold enough for snow, all the original 9 siblings and their families gather together in Bieber, California, and together the entire family will slaughter selected animals and process them down to distribute amongst the families for meat. It is a way of preserving the traditional Azorean custom of community coming together in resources and labor for survival. Tia Bernadette, fifth sister, ninth child. Aunt Bernie was still a young child when the family emigrated to California. She had an American upbringing during the new age of the civil rights movement. Aunt Bernadette ultimately met her husband, my Uncle Steve, through my grandmother's sister-in-law, my Auntie Ruth. Steve and Bernie made their lives in Huntington Beach. It was always exciting to take a trip from Berkeley to Huntington Beach. Aunt Bernie had a pool and a koi pond in her backyard. The rule of the house was, if you wanted to swim in Bernie's pool, you must first prove that you could swim. The test was to be thrown into the middle of the deep end of the pool. If you could demonstrate that you won't drown and complete 2 full laps the length of the pool, then you were free to swim as much as you wanted that day.